All right. And we are back, folks. Special thanks, as always, to Bleacher Report for having me. And we are talking about realistic Rams options here in free agency, realistic free agent targets. The reason I'm putting an emphasis on the word realistic is because there have been some news reports that have come out about certain players. Like we know this guy right here, Chris Jones, doesn't want to leave the Chiefs. But we also have been hearing things like Josh Allen is going to get the franchise tag. And, we've heard Brian Burns is likely going to get the same. So, based on who's most likely to get the franchise tag, we're going to eliminate those from contention. Reason being, we are not talking about Rams trades. We are not talking about who the Rams could acquire. We are talking about strictly Rams free agency. And so I think that, that's the important thing here to focus on that. It's why our thumbnail here is about Daniil Hunter. He's in the thumbnail instead of like a usual Josh Allen or Brian Burns. So we're going to go through each position. I'm going to give you a realistic look who could be targeted. There might not be guys on this PFF list. I am going to mention them because I already know them. So let's dive into it. We're going to start with the quarterbacks and go down the list. But starting off with the quarterbacks, for instance, Kirk Cousins is not a realistic backup option for the Rams. Ryan Tannehill is, however. Baker Mayfield is not. He is going to start. Gardner Minshew is. Jacoby Brissett is. Jameis Winston is. There are other guys that aren't listed on here. Of course, I have that, I have those lists, of course, that I've made, but I really like, for the most realistic look, I like bringing back Carson Wentz. I think Wentz is the best fit. He worked with the offense already. We saw him win a game. Obviously, it was backups versus backups, but I thought he did well handling his own against a top 10 49er defense. The fact of the matter is that I think Carson Wentz is the best option for the Rams. How much is it going to cost? Is he going to be back? Is he going to start? I don't know. But I think if we're talking about the most realistic option at quarterback, it is Carson Wentz. I would like to see a Gardner Minshew potential signing there, if not for Carson Wentz, but not at that price tag. Mind you, that's Pro Bowl Gardner Minshew to you. So look, I know, the Steelers are interested in bringing Ryan Tannehill. That could be to potentially start. We'll see what ends up happening. But as far as quarterbacks go, he's not on this list, but I think Carson Wentz is the most realistic fit there. So let's move on. It's going to be pretty quick with, positions like this. There's not a ton of options. So let's move on to the wide receivers here. And we got the wide receivers. T. Higgins is getting tagged. We now know that the Bengals are tagging him. This is going to have to be a trade if the Rams want him. They can't just sign him outright. This would likely be a tag and trade if they did acquire him. So that's something to keep in mind. Michael Pittman Jr. likely going to be tagged. He's not against it. He wants to stay with the Colts. These are not realistic options. Mike Evans is somewhat realistic, although he is 30 and he's going to ask for about, around 20 million plus whatever. 3 years, 69 million is what they're saying. I don't think the Rams are going to go after Mike Evans. I don't, but you never know. Realistic though, he is available. He's not going to get tagged by the Bucs. If anything, they'll tag Baker or they'll tag Winfield, but they're not tagging Evans. Marquise Brown is realistic. Would I go after Marquise Brown? No. He is 26 though. So, I mean, that's not bad, but I wouldn't go after Marquise Brown. You already have that on the roster in Tutu Atwell. If you use him as much as Marquise Brown is used, probably have similar statistics. This is the interesting one here. We haven't really talked enough about Calvin Ridley. Had 1,000 yards his first year back from suspension. Ridley can't be tagged. Even if the Jaguars wanted to, they have to choose Josh Allen. They have to. He's the best edge on the market. So that is the fascinating thing about that. Because of that, he cannot be tagged. Ridley is going to be available. If the Rams wanted to go after Calvin Ridley to spice up the offense, like I've said that I think that they could, he would make a lot of sense. Field stretcher. So you'd have two of those guys, Atwell and Ridley. You could sign Ridley to a 2-year, $32.5 million deal. Right now, they have $40 million. They could get up to $70 million if they did enough restructures. I don't know if they'll do that, but they could. Calvin Ridley's 29. Again, 1,000-yard receiver. Jaguars would probably want him back. There's no reason to assume that he wouldn't want to come back, and there's no reason to assume why the Jaguars wouldn't want him. But at the same time, the Rams could just pile right into this, this market. It's not to say that they're going to, but it could be very intriguing. Again, good route runner, explosive. You could also look in the draft, but you got Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, Ben Skoranek. Those are like your main guys. Demarcus Robinson was your third guy at the end of the year, and he's a free agent. The question is, do you want to mix up the offense enough where Calvin Ridley now becomes a need? What is your objective? What are you trying to accomplish? Sean McVay and the Rams have done things on the offensive side every year, it seems like. I mean, the Brandon Cooks trade, everyone was talking about Odell, and then all of a sudden, Rams trade first-round pick for Brandon Cooks. First-round pick becomes Isaiah Wynn for the Patriots. Rams get Brandon Cooks. Rams traded for Sammy Watkins, Sean McVay's first year. So we've seen them do different things. Signing Odell, signing Deshaun Jackson, trading away Brandon Cooks to get a second-round pick, and drafting Van Jefferson. Trading away Robert Woods, signing Allen Robinson. We've seen stuff. So how much do they want to mix things up? If they want to go crazy, of course, they could trade for T. Higgins. But if they are trying to just sign somebody, and this is something I want you to think about, because the way I see it is this. You're not signing Calvin Ridley at 29 years old, coming off a 1,000-yard season after a year he was suspended. Great and all, but you're not signing him for 5 years. At age 29 now, he's getting a 2 to 3 year deal. And he's not getting the same tier of deal as Mike Evans right here. So Mike Evans, ungodly, crazy consistency, 10th straight season of 1,000+ yards. That is what's going to get him paid this money. Calvin Ridley doesn't have that consistency. He also was suspended the previous year due to gambling. So I'm going to say this. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams did something like this. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but 2 years, $32.5 million. I could see this. This is a higher, like an upper tier free agent. I think Calvin Ridley would be better with the Rams than he was with Jacksonville. And he had 1,000 yards in Jacksonville. I mean, I think Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. I think the offense is better than what Jacksonville runs. And I think having guys like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Tutu Atwell, of course, Kyron Williams, and then whatever they do at tight end, whether that's Davis Allen or they sign somebody, we'll get into that. I think it creates enough opportunity where Calvin Ridley, for a team that struggled to score touchdowns until later on in the year in the red zone, receiving touchdowns, I think Ridley could be a guy that could haul in some touchdowns. They like that back shoulder fade. That's something Ridley's very good at, has great spatial awareness, always knows where he is on the field, in accordance to the, out of bounds and, the pylon. He could be an option. So circle Calvin Ridley. Darnell Mooney, I'm not interested in. Could be a solid fourth receiver. I'm just not very high on Darnell Mooney. Ridley's blocking is the one thing, but I think anyone that goes to the Rams is going to become a better blocker. That's just how I feel. Gabe Davis is kind of like Calvin Ridley in that, he can stretch the field. Ridley's just a better overall player. But Davis is definitely going to give you that vertical ability. Now, as mentioned down here, be absent from the box score at times. Yes, he'll just have games where he disappears. And on film, you're like, he's just getting shut down. So at age 24, almost 25 years old, there's some value here, but he's not going to sign long-term at $12 million a year. What he's going to do and what his agent is going to recommend he does is take a 1-year prove-it deal and try to work that stock back up, maybe 2 years, but likely 1 year, work that stock back up and get a fat 5-year deal because he'll be 26 next year. Odell is also an intriguing option, also realistic. All of these guys are realistic. That's the thing. Noah Brown, KJ Osborne, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Josh Reynolds, Michael Thomas, DJ Chark, Kendrick Bourne coming off a torn ACL. His value is going to go down, but he is realistic. Curtis Samuel, realistic. Tyler Boyd, like all these guys are realistic, except I would say T. Higgins and Michael Pittman Jr. Mike Evans is technically realistic. I don't see the Rams shelling out $23 million to a wide receiver who's 30 right now. They already are doing that to Cooper Kupp. So I think if you're looking at the one spicy take here, and by the way, no Juwan Jennings on this list. Big fan of him. I will say, I don't think he's a restricted free agent. I don't know what the 49ers do. I think they're looking to tender him this year. Probably doesn't become a free agent until next year. They can't keep him long term. They got to pay Debo. They got to keep paying Debo. They got to actually pay Brandon Ayuk. There's a lot of things going on with the 49ers. They're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. So he could be available after this year. I don't know if Juwan Jennings is going to make it through restricted free agency. And the Rams aren't going to match. They're definitely not going to match any offer, with the 49ers. So they're not going to, put that out there and then give them a second round pick. That's just not what the Rams are going to do. So, if they did an original tender, that's a 7th rounder. I don't know how that works because the Rams don't have a 7th rounder. I don't know if they would give up a 6th or whatnot. But then if it is a right to first refusal, then the 49ers can choose to match or not match a Rams offer. And so if they match it, he stays with the 49ers. If they don't match it, he's a Ram and they don't get any compensatory value. But it's going to depend on what they tender him at. If they tender him at a 2nd or 1st rounder, this is a guy that has 1,000 yards for his career. Not a lot of yards, right? But this is somebody that I think would be better with the Rams. And so if they had an opportunity for cheap, I would do it. If they have to give up a 1st or 2nd round pick, absolutely not. So that was the other one. And then Demarcus Robinson, who for whatever reason is not on this list, he's very much in play. Wouldn't be surprised to see a reunion, but keep an eye on Calvin Ridley. This would be an intriguing ad. The Rams like to, mix things up. 2-year deal. I think you do something like this because Matthew Stafford, you're expected to have him another 2 to 3 years. You're signing these shorter deals with those guys to keep them around with Stafford. If you sign a Ridley here, if you go out and you get Higgins is after Stafford. Higgins is for the now and the future. You get somebody like Ridley, he's for right now. That's how I look at it. So we move away from wide receivers for a sec. We're going to go to halfbacks here. So running backs, Saquon, not an option. Not realistic. Josh Jacobs, not realistic. Derrick Henry, not at that price tag, not realistic. Tony Pollard, I don't think he's realistic. I don't think Austin Eckler's realistic. I don't think DeAndre Swift is realistic. That would be interesting, though. J.K. Dobbins, I would say, is realistic. This is when you get into the realism here. Devin Singletary, A.J. Dillon, Zach Moss. Personally, for me, if I'm the Rams and I want to back up running back, J.K. Dobbins, I like him, but there's still a risk factor here. He's essentially coming off what Cam Akers came off before he became the starter again for the Rams. Devin Singletary, not really overly fast. So if you're trying to kind of change things up, I like him, but I have some, reservations about him. AJ Dillon is massive. We're talking about a 6'1", 6'2", 250-pound back, gigantic quads, hard to bring down on arm tackles. He would offer something different. I think he would complement Kyren Williams well. I think Zach Moss is your best bet. I think it would be between these two, though, or the draft. But most realistic, I would say Zach Moss or AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon's already running a similar offense, was part of a similar offense with Matt LaFleur, former offensive coordinator for the Rams. And then Zach Moss is somebody that's really coming into his own over the last couple of years with the Colts. And they probably don't bring him back. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. Jonathan Taylor is the starter there. Zach Moss showed that he can start if need be. With Kyren Williams' injury history, which wasn't a big deal until he came into the NFL and he's had some freak stuff. I think it'd be smart to maybe go after a Moss or a Dillon. So I like them both there as the realistic options. Fullbacks, we're going to pass. The Rams don't need a fullback. Tight end, this is fascinating here. Very rare do you see a player like Tyler Higbee, like a starting caliber player at the end of the year go down with a season-ending injury that could bleed into next year. But that is what happened. Unfortunately, Kirby Joseph put his helmet right into Tyler Higbee's knee, and he tore his ACL. So with that said, Tyler Higbee is going to start the year on the physically unable to perform list, also known as the PUP list. What that means is Davis Allen and Hunter Long, who's coming off a torn ACL, those are the only two on the roster. Bryson Hopkins, he is a free agent. He's expected to be a free agent. I don't think they bring him back. I'd love them to, but they also don't know how to use him. So Dalton Schultz, what do you do here? 3 years, $33 million? I would say no. I like Dalton Schultz. I don't like him for that price. I don't think the Rams can justify, after already paying Tyler Higbee $8 to $9 million a year, spending $11 million on Schultz. However, I think this is realistic. I think Hunter Henry reuniting with Nick Caley, who was the tight end coach in New England, is the tight end coach for the Rams right now. 2 years, 12 and a quarter million. I could see that. Reliable red zone threat. 2-year deal. He's 29. Again, we talk about the tiers of, moves, right? And so you have a move where you're like, okay, this is a long-term, this is post Stafford, this is for now and the future. A Hunter Henry move would be for now. It might be a 1-year deal, but I like 2 years, 12 and a quarter. Noah Fant, that's a lot of money. $9 million. I think that I would pass on that, but he is 26. The thing I look at is I really like Davis Allen. So I'm just trying to add somebody here that Davis Allen could learn from a little bit. Hunter Henry is a veteran. I think it could help him while Higbee's out. I think also Allen not having all that pressure on him being the number one guy. I like Allen long-term. I think Allen could be a starter long-term. I've been very high on him. That's why I'm not a fan of going out and getting Fant, focusing more on Hunter Henry, who's 29, not spending an extra $3-4 million because Noah Fant is 26. Gerald Everett is also an intriguing option there. 29. That'd be like a 1-year deal, a little bit cheaper. Of course, has familiarity with Sean McVay, was drafted by the Rams, was with the Rams, his whole rookie deal. Adam Troutman is incredibly intriguing to me. 27 years old. Austin Hooper, this would be like a 1-year deal. Mike Gesicki, these are all options here to replace Tyler Higbee in the immediate future here. And complement Davis Allen. Dalton Schultz would be more of a longer term deal for way too much money. So I don't think he makes sense. Moving on, we have the centers here. Now, this is intriguing. Connor Williams is great, but he suffered a torn ACL in week 14, was outstanding, tore his ACL week 14. So you are seeing a guy that might not be ready to go right away. The Rams center, of course, is going to hit free agency in Coleman Shelton due to the modification to his contract before the season started. So Williams has a prove-it 1-year, $6 million deal, which kind of sucks when you think about it. 26 years old, was set to get absolutely paid. Then he, tears his ACL week 14. Now he might have to, take a prove-it deal. If that's the case and the Rams want to go that route, Connor Williams is awesome in both the run and the pass game. So this is somebody, again, more zone blocking oriented as it shows there with Mike McDaniel, but I still think he could do something, with the Rams. Was the second rated PFF center this year, was 4th the previous year and 10th the year before that. Very good player. We'll see what ends up happening. But keep an eye on him. I think everyone on this list is going to be realistic as far as centers go. Andre James is another one. Lloyd Cushenberry. This is a lot of money. 4 years, $57.1 million, but you're getting a 26-year-old center who is outstanding in pass protection and has really become a better run blocker over the course of his career. This is somebody that I think could absolutely become an all-pro center down the road. And I'm a big fan of his overall game. Now, if the Rams ultimately decide we want to move Steve Avila inside at center, then Cushenberry doesn't make sense. You're not paying a premium for a center to move to guard. But if your plan was never to move Steve Avila to center, which isn't what I was told, but if that wasn't the plan and he's going to, in fact, stick at guard, then Lloyd Cushenberry, I think, makes a lot of sense, would be a huge upgrade over Coleman Shelton. I don't want to crap on Coleman Shelton's game. I just don't think Coleman Shelton was great. I think Coleman Shelton was an average center, would have his moments, but he was definitely the weaker link of the offensive line. Getting a guy like Lloyd Cushenberry, that offensive line, I have a hard time to imagine them not being a top 5 unit, assuming they bring back Dotson. So those are my thoughts there. Aaron Brewer, not an option. 275 pound center. It's just not going to work. I think it's fascinating. I give him a lot of props, but in pass pro, he's going to be thrown all over the place. You know, you can't have that. So no to him. Tyler Biotish has kind of fallen off a little bit, would be an interesting, pickup here. 3 years, $21 million. I think he's better than Shelton. Shelton's right here. 28 years old. They have him at 3 years, $16 million. The Rams could also bring back Shelton, but if they want to change their archetype and go with more of a beefier center, I could see them going that route. Evan Brown is the last one here, but I wouldn't really be interested in paying Evan Brown when I could just bring back Coleman Shelton, who knows the offense. So most realistic, I think, if the Rams want to go out and get a center, I think it's Cushenberry. I think he checks all the boxes for them. That 14 per year, that's a lot, but I could see them doing it if that was their decision. I do think, though, I kind of feel like Steve Avila is going to play center this year. So now we move to guard. Kevin Dotson, no brainer. I want him back. I think every Rams fan wants it back. Was the number 2 guard in, according to PFF. And, I think he's just gotten so much better, and he was great in the gap scheme that the Rams, focused on this year. 4 years, $69 million. They're saying, I think that, I think that's very doable for the Rams, to be honest with you. So I think realistically, Kevin Dotson is 100% going to be a target, in free agency. So is Robert Hunt. Whether they bring back Dotson or not, Robert Hunt could very well become a Ram. These guys both played at Louisiana Lafayette in college. So that would be fascinating. But I think Hunt is outstanding. You talk about a guy that's consistent, was 6th this year according to PFF in all guards. He was 12th the year prior. This is somebody that originally started at tackle, ended up going, kicking in at guard and working out well. Wouldn't be surprised if he came back to the Dolphins, but those are, 2 realistic targets here. Older wouldn't be Kevin Zeitler. I don't see them going that route. Reisner's intriguing. Cleveland is intriguing here. Damian Lewis is intriguing. There are definitely some guys, but I like at the top, both of these guys, could see them going after both of those guys. So looking at so we went with centers, guards. Now we're at tackles. There's only one, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. There's only one realistic option for the Rams. That is Tyron Smith. If they choose not to bring back Alec Jackson, or if they choose to bring him back and not make him the starting tackle, Tyron Smith is the only one I would pay on this list. I like Onwenu, but he's a right tackle. Wouldn't make sense. Trent Brown wouldn't make sense. Alec Jackson is a better option than anybody on this list, without a doubt. I don't even think it's relatively close. I don't think people realize how good Alec Jackson is. So I wouldn't be against Alec Jackson starting at left tackle this season. However, I do want to prepare for the future. Tyron Smith wouldn't be for the future. This is, again, goes back to one of those moves where, you talk about you're getting a guy now to help you, but you're also getting a guy that can help you as long as Stafford's under contract. So if they went out and got Tyron Smith, I wouldn't be surprised to see them, give him a 3-year deal and, have him do what Whitworth did. Whitworth came in at age 36 and played until he was 40. Tyron Smith is 33. So think about that. People look at him and he's too old. He's 3 years younger than Whitworth was when he signed with the Rams. So keep that in mind. Anyway, let's move on. So we got the offense all taken care of there. We move on to the cornerbacks here. I'm going to tell you right now, this is not realistic. Jalen Johnson is going to either be tagged or he's going to be signed long term. I would love to see Jalen Johnson on the Rams. I think he's one of the best corners in football, has the total package. You look at the body composition, you look at his ability in coverage, just a physical guy. But overall, I just do not see this working out where he becomes a free agent. So Montez Sweat was extended. What that did was allowed the franchise tag to be freed up. They would have had to choose between him and Montez Sweat to use the franchise tag on. Now they'll just tag Jalen Johnson, work out a deal. So he is not going to hit free agency. It goes back to the point of realistic. L'Jarius Sneed is going to be a free agent no matter what. They're not going to tag him. They'd likely tag Chris Jones. L'Jarius Sneed is a penalty magnet. Okay. He had more penalties than games played. That is my concern with L'Jarius Sneed. I would pass, I think, $17.5 million a year on a corner that's constantly generating penalties is very concerning. I know he's 27. I do like him. He's just not a very disciplined player. And for that reason, I would pass. I don't think this is realistic. I don't think the Rams will do that. Kendall Fuller's intriguing, was there when Sean McVay was there. Fuller is a very good player, and I think he's really suffering just being around just a bad defense, especially after they traded Chase Young. And of course, we just mentioned Montez Sweat. He was 7th this year, according to PFF, at corner, 15th the year prior, and 3rd the year before that. I think what you get with Fuller is just a very well-rounded, savvy player. And so this is somebody that I could see them 100% adding this offseason. Realism here. Chidobe Awuzie, I mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. If he goes back to these numbers in 2021, absolutely, I'd be interested. But there's too much of a risk factor here. You're not going to see him on this list. I don't know why. To me, Ahkello Witherspoon needs to be brought back. I don't think people realize how well he played. Yes, he was hurt at the end of the year, and he gave up a few bigger plays down the stretch, but played really tough. It's hard to have a guy that has, find a guy with that size, that speed combination that really does that nice of a job of playing from the trail. So I think he makes a lot of sense. We already know he works in this defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go somewhere else. But I think it would be smart for the Rams to bring him back wholeheartedly. Stephon Gilmore getting up there in age. This would be another one of those. Sign him to a 1-year deal if need be. Steven Nelson is intriguing. I think all these guys are options except Kenny Moore. They don't need just a slot only guy, and they don't need to pay a guy that much just to be the slot corner. Adoree's interesting because of also his return ability. Same goes for Keyshawn Nixon. Overall, I like the idea of bringing back Ahkello Witherspoon. And if they don't, I like the idea of signing Kendall Fuller or looking at this position in free agency. I think Fuller is a very, very solid player. I understand you hear solid and you're not like, yeah, I'm not dying to spend $40 million on a solid player. But he's 29. It would be a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal. I think he'd be a part of just this last push to, bring Lombardi back to LA. With Matthew Stafford still under contract. So we don't know how long that's going to be. Stafford could sign another extension, but I think with the rest of his deal, I think these are the type of deals that you could see happening. We're going to find out a lot soon about where the Rams kind of see things. Are they going to, aim for this, the future? Are they going to go only for guys that can help them long term? Are they going to go for guys that can help them in the short term? A mix. We'll find out soon enough. Moving on to the safeties here. I don't think Winfield is going to be available. I think the Bucs are going to tag him. 100% think the Bucs tag him. I think the Patriots tag Kyle Duggar. I think Washington will tag Cam Curl. I think McKinney could get tagged. However, they are paying so much money to Daniel Jones and they have to sign Saquon Barkley. They might have to tag Barkley again if that's the case. McKinney would be a great fit for the Rams. He's 25 years old, will be 26 by the end of the year. But I think he's just so great as far as just a tackler. He's really what you would call the last line of defense. You feel good about him, the back end of your secondary. So keep an eye on him. I don't know if the Rams are going to go heavy on safety this year. We'll see. John Johnson, free agent. Jordan Fuller, free agent. You got Quentin Lake playing the star role. You got Russ Yeast. Then you got, Jason Taylor the second. it's hard to know what kind of situation that they're going to go into. Geno Stone, to me, is either going to go to Seattle and he's going to follow McDonald, or he's going to go to Tennessee and he's going to follow Denard Wilson, who became the defense coordinator with Tennessee. So I don't think he's in play. But, I mean, hey, he had a great year last year. We'll see what happens. Blackman, I think, is intriguing. I think they could very well bring back Jordan Fuller. The irony, or just the reality, rather, is that the safety market has become affordable. You can go out and get whoever you want in the safety market, unless you're going to get somebody like this, then you're paying really top dollar, about $16 million. But if you're looking to get, Jordan Whitehead, well, it's going to cost you $6 million a year. If you're looking to bring back Jordan Fuller, it's going to cost you about $4 million. Wouldn't be surprised. They normally don't pay safeties, the Rams, but wouldn't be surprised with the way the safety market has gone. Jordan Fuller is back in horns. I also wouldn't be surprised they went with Jordan Whitehead. I don't think CJ Gardner-Johnson fits what they do. And yeah, there's some other guys, Darnell Savage, Mike. I thought Mike Edwards had a great Super Bowl. Doesn't get enough credit. He'd be intriguing there. And then Jeremy Chin, who is way down here. He's like a safety linebacker hybrid, kind of fell off, but there's definitely some options here to keep an eye on. So we move on to the linebackers who are realistic here. Well, I'll tell you right now, realistic, all these guys are realistic. Do the Rams want to bring in Levante David, a la, very similar to Bobby Wagner, for a year? I don't know. I don't think so. Frankie Louvu, I don't think is an option. I don't think they want to spend $10 million on a linebacker, but I will say Patrick Queen, I don't think it's an option either. Not paying 18. Jordan Brooks, I don't think is an option at 11. I think Bobby Wagner return would be interesting. I don't know if they would do that. Al-Shaair, Devin White. I don't love Devin White. I think he's overrated. He's got a negative WAR in every single season since 2021. You can see it right here. Not great. Jewel I don't know if he really fits the archetype of what they look for. To me, this man makes the most sense. Blake Cashman, great in coverage. He's great against the run. This is somebody who's 8th according to PFF. They're saying $4.25 million per year. So that's 2 years, $8.5 million. I think the Rams should be all over that. I think he makes a lot of sense, would be a perfect fit next to Ernest Jones. You could still bring back Christian Roseboom, but make Blake Cashman your starter. I thought he just played outstanding this year in Houston, doesn't get enough talk, and I stand by this. I think he's the most realistic option. I think he does the most there. I think Tyrell Dodson is incredibly intriguing from the Bills. 1 year, $3.25 million. Keep an eye on him. Was the number 1 rated inside linebacker according to PFF. So that's something to keep in mind. So I like Dodson, and I really, really like going after Blake Cashman. I think Drew Tranquil is an option as well. But those are some guys that I'm looking at inside linebacker. Moving on here, we got interior defenders. I'm going to say this, okay? I don't think the Rams are going to go in this direction, but it would be fascinating if the Rams decided, you know what, we're not going to go after an edge defender. We'll draft one, but we're going to go interior again and just go balls to the wall, putting somebody next to Aaron Donald. And that would not be Chris Jones, because I think he's going to be tagged by the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, bring him back. But I think Justin Madubuike, if they did that, Madubuike takes over for Aaron Donald. So you sign him at 26. He plays this year and beyond. I think Aaron Donald could be done soon. We have to understand the reality of the situation is that Justin Madubuike might make sense. The Rams might look long-term, and they might see that Aaron Donald has a year left. We know he could play another 5 years, but we're constantly hearing about retirement, all sorts of stuff there. Justin Madubuike is somebody that I would consider. He's going to offer that pressure that you're going to lose the moment you lose Aaron Donald. He's got a great first step. He'd be with Kobe Turner. You'd sign him at 26 to a 5-year deal. You'd have him until he was 31. I mean, the way he's playing right now, I think it might make sense. Now, 4 years, $92 million sounds like a lot, but they could do some things to make this a little bit more affordable. Would be a fascinating move. However, the question remains, is he worth that? Was this just a take the money and run type season? Is this who he is, or did he have a really good contract year? That's an internal discussion the Rams would have to have. Another one is Christian Wilkins. Now he's more, and again, I think he gets, franchise tag, but he's more of a run defender in my opinion. However, he's done a really nice job of, developing his overall game. Was sixth interior defensive line in 2021, was ninth in 2022, and was 29th this past year. Very quality player. You going to pay him that much? I don't know. Leonard Williams, I'm not really a fan of paying him all that much. I think he's kind of dropped off a little bit. Really good run defender. But to me, if the Rams are going to spend tons of money on an interior defensive lineman, I don't think any of these guys are realistic. To me, it has to be somebody like Madubuike if he's going to play at this level, and it's got to be somebody like Chris Jones. If it's not either of those guys, then I don't think it makes sense. So that's that. Edge defenders now. Josh Allen is going to be franchise tagged. That's what we know. Trent Baalke said he's going to remain in Jacksonville. So unfortunately, there goes the Josh Allen thing, which we already knew. We knew who's going to get franchise tagged. The question is, does he get tagged and traded? This is not what that video is about. This video is all about guys that could be signed by the Rams in free agency, most realistic. Brian Burns, okay? I think he's going to get franchise tagged. Sure sounds like it. Sounds like Carolina's leaning towards the franchise tag. And by the way, with Ejiro Evero staying put as the defensive coordinator, I think it's very likely that Brian Burns stays in Carolina. So with that said, I'm going to say that he is not a realistic option to be signed. Could they trade for him? Yes, they could still trade for him. But these two are getting franchise tagged. And that leaves right here. You have Kirk Cousins, who's a free agent. You might have to franchise tag. You have a lot of different cap issues going on in Minnesota. So in steps Danielle Hunter, who is going to find free agency. He's going to find a home. And I think the Rams are the team to look out for. This is a guy that had 80 plus pressures this year. He had 16 and a half sacks. He played 900 snaps. And at one point or another, he had neck issues. He had, injury concerns. But the way he's played as of late, you kind of forget that they even existed. So this is somebody at 29, years old. He's going to sign likely a 3-year deal. I think this makes sense if you're trying to, say you keep Aaron Donald around for the next 3 years. You have him work with Danielle Hunter, and then you kind of figure it out afterwards. But Hunter working with Byron Young would be huge. I think that would be really beneficial for him. I think Hunter's a great player. This guy right here and Calvin Ridley and Blake Cashman feel like the most likely candidates. Like if you're looking at the most realistic, I think Danielle Hunter is very realistic. And I think the thing with him is that he's also good against the run. And that's the thing. He's a great, great, great pass rusher, physical freak, but he's also good against the run. This next guy here, Bryce Huff, who I'm a big fan of, played half as many snaps, almost half as many, 481 to 900 with Hunter. They have him at 3 years, $50 million. I could see that. However, I think what scares the Rams, what will scare teams, what will give them pause, is that this is somebody that is really a situational pass rusher. He's not great against the run. Is he a 3-down player? Do you think you could get that out of him? If you feel like you could, yes, you sign him. But I don't know if you can. And so for that reason, he's about to be 26, but for that reason, I don't know if the Rams go this direction. I think they could go this direction. This seems like a lot of money. I think they could figure something out with Hunter. I don't know about Bryce Huff. Chase Young, very intriguing. Okay. I thought he played well in the playoffs, especially the Super Bowl, getting that sack, played 891 snaps this year. This is somebody that needs to be better disciplined in the run game. When he's on, he is on, but he's had some ACL issues. He's had some maturity questions about his game. He's going to be 25. The 49ers, are they going to bring him back? Are they not going to bring him back? I think this is another name to look out for. I think maybe we got really into him early on, went to the 49ers, kind of assumed the 49ers would bring him back. But if you look at the 49ers situation right now, it's not a guarantee they do bring him back. So for that reason, I would put him on the list of targets that are realistic. These three, I think, are more realistic than these two. Now, going down here, Clowney, I don't see them going with. I don't see him going with Grenard, although maybe, but I don't see it. I think he stays with Houston. Clowney is a hired gun, but I don't think the Rams would bring him in. I don't know if the Rams bring in Zadarius Smith. Josh Uche would be the next guy. Very, very tough to figure out in place because he's never had a season where he's been asked to have 400 snaps. So we were just talking about how Bryce Huff only had 481. Josh Uche doesn't get utilized the way he should. So we don't really know. Can he become that guy? He was the 14th overall outside linebacker / edge in 2022, according to PFF. This year is 91st. I don't know, but he's 25 years old, and I think it's worth bringing him in. If it's a 1 year, $7.2 million deal, I would hope to do like a 2 year, $14 million. But he becomes very realistic. Would a Leonard Floyd reunion make any sense? Maybe. I don't know if he'd want to go back. But I kind of feel like that they would avoid especially edge. I think they want a younger guy, but if they're going to go older, they're going to go more this type, 29, Danielle Hunter, dominant. I don't think they're looking to get a hired gun. Van Ginkel is interesting because he would be like a weapon for the defense. Dorrance Armstrong is interesting here. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Seattle and followed Aiden Durd, who actually was the defensive line coach for the Dallas Cowboys. He's now the defensive coordinator in Seattle. Could Calais Campbell join Aaron Donald in his last year? I don't know if this is his last year, but it probably is getting to that point. Could we see Calais Campbell, who is called the Ageless Wonder for a reason? Could he play with Donald? Who knows? Brandon Graham, Carl Lawson. There are definitely some guys here that are intriguing. I like Marcus Davenport as the dark horse guy that no one really wants to talk about. But I think the most likely guy, to be honest with you, is Danielle Hunter. I think this is kind of where the Rams would look. I think they would go edge in the free agency period. And I think that they could free up enough space to get him, still bring back Ahkello Witherspoon, and bring back Kevin Dotson. Now, we'll see what ends up happening, but I think Danielle Hunter is very realistic. So, with that said, we have a lot of options here. It sucks. There is a lot of, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of guys that are going to be tagged. I think there's going to be so many franchise tags. It really kind of hit me early on that this is what's going to happen, because when you look at these names, yes, not all these guys can find for agency. With that said, there's still a lot of help that could be given to the Rams. So they have decent amount of cap space. Keep in mind, if the Rams were to sign Chris Jones, for instance, for $30 million a year, that doesn't mean $30 million a year that's going to go against their cap. You can figure things out to make things work. It's how the 49ers were able to go out and get Javon Hargrave. Even though he was so much money, they still fit it into their cap. That is the thing that's important to realize. It's not just 30 million copy paste. It doesn't work that way. So we're going to find out. The Rams have a chance to completely change what they do. I mean, are they going to go and sign a safety like Xavier McKinney and break their usual mold? We've seen them do that. It didn't work with Bobby Wagner and Allen Robinson. Could it ever happen? I don't know. But I'm going to say this right now. Buckle up. It's going to be a fun offseason. Hard to really predict what kind of free agency we're looking at here. We don't know what realm the Rams are going to be looking in. Are they looking at, going after the short-term 3-year guys, 2 to 3 year guys that could be around for Stafford's contract? Or are they looking for guys that could be key components to the Rams post Matthew Stafford? We're going to find that out over the course of, a few, months. But, next month we'll find out. Actually, I think it's literally a entire month from now. So exactly to this day, a month from now, I believe, could be wrong, but a month from now, I believe free agency hits. So looking forward to it. A lot of stuff. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me on here. You guys can check me out on YouTube, Jake Ellenbogen. You can just type in my name. There you go. And you can follow me on all social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow me on this app at JK Bogan. Appreciate you guys for hanging out, and I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.